I never thought I'd become a young widow. My husband died in a freak car accident. A drunk driver. A rainy night. A blind curve. My name is Sarah, and I'm 34. For the past 2 years, I've been navigating a world I never expected to inhabit. The world of a young widow. My husband, Mark, died in a freak car accident. A drunk driver. A rainy night. A blind curve. One moment, he was texting me about picking up Thai food. The next, gone. Grief is a physical thing. A constant weight in my chest. A fog in my brain. A dull ache that never truly fades. But what I didn't expect was how my own family would make it exponentially worse. The trouble started, unsurprisingly, with my sister Jessica. Calling her the black sheep would be too cliché. Jessica is more like a glitter bomb of chaos, superficially sparkly but ultimately messy and destructive. She's 3 years older than me, but emotionally, she's stuck somewhere around 15. Jealous, attention-seeking, prone to dramatic outbursts. Mark, bless his patient soul, always tried to see the good in her, even when she was utterly unbearable. He called it her misguided energy. I called it a pain in the ass. The first sign of trouble came at Mark's memorial service. I had chosen a simple, minimalist urn for his ashes. A smooth, dark ceramic piece that felt comforting to hold. Jessica, however, arrived in a skin-tight black dress that looked more appropriate for a nightclub than a funeral. And then she proceeded to sob dramatically through the entire service, clinging to my mother and wailing about how unfair it all was. At one point, she even tried to grab the urn. I had to physically pry her fingers off of it. And my mother, well, bless her heart. Which, if you're from the South, you know is just a polite way of saying someone is a complete disaster. Mom has always favored Jessica. It wasn't even subtle. Growing up, Jessica got the new clothes, the expensive extracurriculars, the constant praise, even when she was clearly in the wrong. I was the responsible one, the easy child, which in my family translated to the one we can ignore. After the service, I took Mark's urn home and placed it on the mantelpiece in our living room, next to a framed photo of us on our wedding day. Him beaming, me laughing, both of us blissfully unaware of the tragedy that lay ahead. It was a small comfort, but it was something. A way to feel close to him. A week later, I came home from work to find the mantelpiece empty. The photo was still there, but the urn was gone. My heart leapt into my throat. I searched the house frantically, a cold dread spreading through my veins. Had I been robbed? But nothing else seemed to be missing. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. A picture of her holding Mark's urn, grinning like she'd just won the lottery. The caption read, "Taking Marky on an adventure. He always wanted to see Vegas." My blood turned to ice. Vegas. She had stolen my husband's ashes to take them to Vegas. I called her immediately, my voice shaking with rage and disbelief. "Jessica, what the hell have you done?" She giggled. "Relax, Sarah. I'm just giving Mark the send-off he deserves. He always loved a good party." "He's dead, Jessica. He's ashes. That's not a party, it's its desecration." "Oh, don't be so dramatic. He would have wanted this. You were always so boring, Sarah. He needed some excitement." I hung up on her. I couldn't even speak. I felt like I was going to be sick. I called my mother, hoping, against all logic, that she would be on my side. "Mom, Jessica stole Mark's ashes. She took him to Vegas." There was a long pause. Then my mother sighed. "Oh, Sarah, you're overreacting." "Overreacting? She kidnapped my husband's remains. She's just trying to process her grief in her own way," my mother said dismissively. "By taking his remains to a casino. That's not processing, that's—" "Now, Sarah," she interrupted, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, "don't be mean. Jessica is sensitive. And besides," she hesitated, then added, "Mark was always a bit of a loser, wasn't he? All that talk about starting his own business, but he never really did anything, did he? You're better off without him, honey. You can find someone better." I stared at my phone in disbelief. "He was my husband, Mom," I whispered. "I loved him. And he wasn't a loser. He was kind and funny and he was everything to me." "Well, you need to get over it, Sarah. It's been 2 years. Time to move on. Frankly, I think Jessica is doing you a favor. Maybe this will help you let go." I hung up on my mother, too. I felt like I was drowning. My own family, siding with Jessica, dismissing Mark's memory like he was nothing. It was too much. I sat down on the floor, surrounded by the emptiness of my house, and I sobbed. Then, something shifted. The grief was still there, raw and aching, but something else was rising alongside it. Anger. A cold, hard, burning anger. And with the anger came a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't going to let them get away with this. I wasn't going to let them disrespect Mark's memory. I wasn't going to let them treat me like this anymore. I was going to fight back. I dried my tears, stood up, and started to make a plan. The first step? Getting Mark back. I knew Jessica wouldn't give him up willingly, so I had to get creative. Jessica, despite her chaotic lifestyle, was incredibly predictable in one area: social media. She documented everything online. I logged into her Instagram. Sure enough, there were dozens of pictures and videos of her in Vegas, posing with the urn in various locations. At the Bellagio fountains, in a casino, even on a roller coaster. I shuddered at the thought. She was treating Mark like some kind of morbid prop. But her constant posting also gave me a crucial piece of information. The name of the hotel she was staying at. A gaudy, over-the-top place called the Pharaoh's Palace. Naturally, I booked a flight to Vegas for the next morning. I didn't tell anyone. I just packed a small bag, grabbed my credit card, and left. The flight was agonizing. I spent the whole time replaying my mother's words in my head. He was just a loser anyway. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. Mark had been working tirelessly on his startup, a tech company focused on sustainable energy solutions. He poured his heart and soul into it, sacrificing weekends and working late into the night. He was on the verge of a breakthrough when the accident happened. He never got to see his dream realized. And my mother, who had never once shown an interest in his work, had the audacity to call him a loser. When I arrived in Vegas, the sheer sensory overload nearly knocked me over. The flashing lights, the blaring music, the throngs of people. It was everything Mark despised. He hated crowds, loathed gambling, and found the entire Vegas scene unbearably tacky. The thought of his ashes being paraded around this place made my stomach turn. I checked into a cheap motel a few blocks from the strip. I didn't want to risk running into Jessica. Then, I began my stakeout at the Pharaoh's Palace. Hours passed as I sat in the lobby, pretending to read a magazine while scanning the crowd. Then I saw her. Jessica strutted through the casino in a ridiculously short sequin dress, carrying Mark's urn like it was a designer handbag. She was surrounded by a group of equally loud, obnoxious people, laughing and drinking as if my husband's ashes were just another accessory to her Vegas escapades. I waited for my moment. When she disappeared into the restroom, I made my move. Approaching her group as casually as I could, I turned to the nearest guy, a beefy dude with a tribal tattoo snaking up his neck. "Excuse me," I said, keeping my voice light. "I think my friend left her, container here." I gestured toward the urn, which sat on the table next to a half-empty bottle of champagne. The guy glanced at me, then at the urn, then back at me. He shrugged. "Whatever, lady. Take it." I grabbed the urn and walked away as quickly as possible, my heart hammering in my chest. I didn't stop until I was back in my motel room, door locked and bolted. Sitting on the bed, I clutched the urn to my chest. It was still warm from being handled. "I got you, Mark," I whispered. "I got you back." The next morning, I flew home. I didn't tell Jessica. I didn't tell my mother. I just went back to my empty house, placed the urn back on the mantelpiece, and started thinking about the next phase of my plan. I knew I couldn't just let things go. My mother's words, Jessica's actions, they were unforgivable. But I wasn't going to confront them directly. That would only lead to more drama, more denials, more pain. I needed to be smarter than that. I started doing some research. My parents were struggling financially. My father's real estate business had been floundering for years, and my mother's taste for designer clothes and lavish vacations hadn't helped. They had always relied on Jessica to charm wealthy men, but her relationships were as short-lived as they were unstable. Then I remembered something. A few years ago, when Mark and I were buying our house, my parents had asked us for a loan, $50,000 to help with a business deal gone sour. Mark, being the kind soul he was, agreed. He even drew up a loan agreement. Very straightforward. Very legally binding. I dug through old files until I found it. There it was, in black and white. $50,000, with a hefty interest rate, payable in monthly installments. And most importantly, a clause stating that if they missed 3 consecutive payments, the full amount would be due immediately. I checked their payment history. They had been inconsistent, sometimes missing payments for months before catching up with a lump sum. But for the past 2 months, nothing. A slow smile spread across my face. This was it. My leverage. I contacted a lawyer, an acquaintance of a friend who specialized in contract law. I showed her the loan agreement. "This is airtight, Sarah," she said after reviewing it. "You're well within your rights to demand full repayment." "And if they can't pay?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Foreclosure," she said, nodding. I didn't hesitate. I instructed her to send a formal demand for payment, 30 days to pay the full amount plus interest. The reaction was predictable. My mother called me, screaming, accusing me of being a heartless monster. My father left angry voicemails, threatening legal action. Jessica bombarded me with abusive texts, calling me every name in the book. I ignored them all, blocked their numbers, deleted their emails. 30 days passed. They hadn't paid a cent. I gave my lawyer the green light to begin foreclosure proceedings. The house they lived in, the house I grew up in, where they hosted countless family gatherings, where they raised Jessica and me, was going to be sold. It wasn't about the money. It was about justice. It was about holding them accountable for their actions. It was about finally standing up for myself, for Mark, for the life we had built together. The process was long and messy. Legal challenges, emotional outbursts, attempts at reconciliation, all of which I rejected. But in the end, the law was on my side. The house was sold at auction. My parents and Jessica were forced to move into a small, cramped apartment in a far less desirable part of town. I didn't feel joy, no satisfaction, just emptiness. But it was a different kind of emptiness than before. Not the suffocating weight of grief, but the quiet, steady kind that comes when a chapter is finally closed. When a burden is lifted. With the money from the loan repayment, I set up a foundation in Mark's name, one dedicated to supporting research in sustainable energy. A small way to honor him, to keep his dream alive. I haven't spoken to my mother or Jessica since. I don't know if I ever will. Some wounds are too deep to heal. Some betrayals too profound to forgive. But I'm okay. I'm learning to live with the grief, to build something new from the ashes of my old life. I'm finding my own strength, my own voice. I am no longer the easy child, no longer the responsible one, no longer the one they could ignore. I am Sarah, and I am finally free. I learned something through all of this. Family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, love, loyalty. And sometimes, the people who are supposed to be your family are the ones who hurt you the most. But you don't have to let them define you. You can choose your own family. You can choose your own path. And you can choose to be happy, even in the face of unimaginable loss. Did you enjoy the story? Want more? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more wild and unhinged Reddit stories. Your support means a lot and helps my channel grow.